Alrighty, we are back with your favorite podcast show of the week. This is Location Weekly, episode number 470, and we're recording live on June the 23rd. Brianna, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you? Did you have a good Father's Day?
I did have a good Father's Day. The weather's been hot and good, and we were able to celebrate outside and be with family, and so that was good. And today I got my first haircut, like real haircut, in like 3 months or whatever, so other than my wife cutting it. So yeah, so that was good. Yeah, things are looking up. What can I say?
Nice. Very
How
good.
about Jerome? What did he do?
Well, on the actual Father's Day, we kind of just hung out. I had ordered like some specialty, I I guess they're like sausages or like grilling stuff from this yummy place that we grilled. And but the day before, we went to this park where there's like a waterfall, and we hiked as a family and just kind of hung out by the river, and it was really fun and nice. So we had a good weekend and just relaxed. And obviously we had Juneteenth that Friday, so it was like a weekend of celebrations
Yeah,
here. Yeah, pretty good.
awesome,
But yeah,
awesome.
we are definitely in the hot and humidity that Atlanta brings, but I know that you are too. So um,
Yeah, unusually so.
abnormal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. It's very weird to be like this hot up here at this time of year. But anyhow, we'll take
Yep.
it because who knows? I mean, it could be gone soon. We'll see.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Anyhow, we have a good show for you. We have four stories for you this week. Our guest had to postpone again, so we'll push that out to next week. But we've got a bunch of interesting things to talk about. And as per usual, I'll let Brianna kick us off because we're talking about girl stuff. So there you go.
We are talking about girl stuff, and a company that we've talked about a few times before, L'Oreal. So L'Oreal owns the company called Mahdi Face, or I guess it's Mahdi Face.
Yep.
And so they have, it's actually, Mahdi Face is more of like an app developer, and they do a lot of cool AR stuff. They've done things where you can try on different hair colors. They have where you can try on different, makeup like eye shadows and lipsticks and things of that nature. And now they're partnering with Amazon, which is pretty cool. So that on Amazon you can do this virtual cosmetic testing. So you can basically like virtually try on all of these colors, look at something that matches your skin tone, and you can do this with a selfie or a live video. Um, and you can do with a few different brands that they have: the L'Oreal Canada, L'Oreal Paris, Maybelline New York, and the NYX professional makeup brands. So it's kind of fun. I was actually, it's funny that I got this story because earlier this week I was talking to my friend, and I was like saying, I don't know, it's probably just from being like in quarantine for so long, you start thinking of doing crazy stuff to your hair. At first I had like the idea that I wanted to dye my hair like really dark blue, like dark blue jean blue. And then I was like, well, maybe I should see if I would look good as a blonde. So I was reminded when I saw this, I'm like, oh, I should try their hair color app. So I was doing that for a little bit. But you have to like pay for the extra good version if you
All
don't want
right.
to just try on like green hair and stuff. So I only got so far with that. But yeah, you can let me know what you think about the story, but you could also let me know if I should just go blonde or blue.
At
I
the
don't
end of the
know.
day, it's whatever Jerome says. Like, I mean, I got no opinion on that.
I don't think he cares. I don't think he has a preference as long as I like it. But I don't know. I'm sure my kids would think it'd be great if I was like,
I
had
think blue could be
unicorn hair.
cool. I don't know. I mean, be different.
I know. Yep, for sure. Maybe a temporary one, right?
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
start with
Yeah,
that. Okay.
just like those temporary tattoos, you just kind of just try it out for a while, see if you like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is super interesting. I think that Mahdi Face is a Toronto-based company right up here where I am, and yeah, I think the Amazon part of this to me is interesting because Amazon's really trying to push hard into mainstream brands and partnerships with whether it's big retail names like JCPenney or what have you, or Sears that they partnered with, or kind of moving into kind of the consumer facing CPG type brands like L'Oreal here. So I think we're going to see more of this from Amazon. I think we've talked recently about what they're doing in groceries and in pharmaceuticals and those types of products. So they're really trying to become sort of that go-to place for everything. And especially when you're talking about not just, hey, I'm looking for some sort of specialized thing I can't find in the local store, but to be like the products that we use every day, whether that's cosmetics or what have you, and be able to find the brands that we like and to potentially find it at a better price or a better, quicker availability. I think makes sense, and I think I like things like this that let you experiment, let you try on different things because I think it's really neat. And I was reading yesterday too, just as a sidebar, Facebook's got some new technology that they're working on that takes 2D images and converts them into 3D models of people for trying on, and so it's really could change e-commerce, drastically in the next little while if they're able to kind of pull that off. So I think you're going to see a big movement now towards these types of virtual try-ons, virtual measurements, virtual sort of just product sampling, if you will, to use a more generic term, because so many people are choosing to stay home, not go into the stores, and kind of really move to that online environment. So I think timing is really good for these types of technologies. I think we're going to see an explosion of that, and so good on Amazon for teaming up with L'Oreal and Mahdi Face. There you
Yeah, it's
go.
just too bad they didn't have something ready to go. Like, everybody's using these Zoom virtual backgrounds. Like, could we not just have virtual makeup and clothes we could put on, just roll out of bed and be in front of your computer
I
and not have to
I
even,
think there's something
fix your
there.
face?
There's definitely something there. Like yeah, I think they should come out with some kind of virtual, look for people. Not just change the
Yeah.
background, change the foreground. Let's do it. Alrighty. Second story. So Panasonic's lighting division, Panasonic Lighting America, has teamed up with Pointer, and this is a company that we covered. I don't know. It's been a couple of years, I think, since we've talked about Pointer on the show. But like all the lighting guys out there, Acuity and GE and Philips and all these guys that we talk about who are members of the LVMA and so on. Panasonic is a player in this space, obviously, and it's interesting because we you know this is a solution that really is about indoor positioning, indoor using beacons embedded into lighting systems, powered through the lighting systems to understand where people are in buildings, using that to deliver real-time location-based services within a physical space. Um, so here's the challenge I have with this. I think there are a lot of use cases for the data here in terms of understanding sort of the new reality of retail, which is the COVID reality of retail. Physical distancing, gathering size restrictions throughout buildings. So if you take a property like a Walmart or any big box store, using this type of technology, I think you can actually, see some real benefits from that. Not unlike what we talked about with what we're doing at ground level, using video analytics to measure some of those things over CCTV cameras. So I think there's use cases there. If we're talking about marketing and real-time offers and messages, personally, I think the time for that has passed. I think people are right now. It's all about get in, get what you need, and get out. And so I don't think there's going to be, a lot of opportunity to influence purchase decisions in store in the same way that we may have, with the early days of beacon marketing and things like that. So, but as a data platform integrated into the lighting systems, I love it, and I think that's where all these guys should be going. But that's just my personal sort of view on this. You?
Yeah, I agree. I think that well, we've seen some of the bigger brands, like you mentioned, Acuity, sort of move away from the marketing and advertising play with the location-based lighting at this point. I'm sure they're still offering it, but it's not their main focus in terms of sales, right? Like they're more focused on um, probably like warehouse solutions and things of that nature. And I think the reason for that is probably twofold, right? I think that on one hand, having to go in and integrate a lot of hardware, even though it's going to be there for a long time because of the longevity of these smart lights and everything, as compared to just traditional lighting options currently, is hard. It's a hard sell. And then, bringing in the SDK into an app and having to link all of those things together, using Target as an example, I think it presents a lot of, it's a very long tail sell, and it's very complicated, where I think that I think the future is having an understanding, being able to use that data of how people move throughout the store and maybe even sell it back to the brands, the SKUs, the CPGs that are within all of those stores. Because I think that that's going to change, whether consumer behavior is likely different in a Walmart versus a Target versus a Nordstrom, and having the ability to understand how people move around, not only, throughout the store, but also interacting with the different things on the shelf. All of those things I think are important. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. However, then you are presented with other challenges, like how do I share the data in a privacy sensitive way? How do I retarget audiences based on their behavior tied to these things? So I think there's a lot of layers to it, and it's great that we have the capability of it. But I think from a business perspective, we're just not there yet, for it being something that businesses are willing to really invest in. And obviously layer in the whole consumer shopping behavior is completely changed right now because of COVID. There's a lot of challenges, but I do think that it's interesting, and maybe this is them testing out something bigger so that when people are back in the stores, like they were a year ago, that they have something ready to roll. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think we're in alignment. I think it's all about data. I think that there's lots of use cases, for even non-people touching stuff. Moving drones, moving robots, moving things for picking and packing and warehousing and things like that using the same data. So I absolutely buy into that. I think as long as they stay sort of focused on the data side and using data to optimize either the performance or the planogram or those other aspects of it, and not really focus it on kind of consumer facing marketing and influence. I think this is a really great partnership. I think if you do want to go down that road of marketing, I think you have to shift it now away from sort of here's an offer on your phone to maybe some sort of real-time connectivity to digital signage or something like that that's in the venue, to kind of flash up messages or offers or something like that that people can visually see and not have to get their phone and interact or do that. And good thing is we're talking about Panasonic here. So Panasonic also happens to be a very large player in the digital signage space. So maybe the lighting division and the digital signage division can team up and come up with some interesting use case there as well. So there you go. All right.
Yeah.
So that's our first two stories. Moving on now to Brazil. Aubriana's got a pretty cool one from one of our favorite members.
Yeah, so we talk about Burger King a lot. It seems they are always innovating and doing really cool, and fun and quirky campaigns. And I like that they do this beyond just North America. So what they're doing in Brazil in order to promote, staying at home and also promote their products is they have done this reward system where basically, like, the longer that you are staying at home or in lockdown, the more points and rewards that you can redeem or exchange for Burger King goods. So basically they have the mobile app's geolocation that they're using, and obviously customers who participate have to opt in, so there's not really any privacy concerns there. And then they get free vouchers for food that accumulate for the as they spend more time at home. So they worked with agencies called David Miami and David, I guess it's David, but the locations in Miami and Sao Paulo. And they just started the campaign on June 4th. And what I like about this campaign is like it's fun and it is obviously beneficial to, you know, helping people be motivated, maybe not to go out as often. But what I think is really unique is that they are also able to use this data for future advertising and marketing. So having an understanding of consumer behavior, where they live, where they go, you know, their other points of interest maybe that they are visiting, that's going to give them, I think, a great opportunity to use that data once things are a little bit more open. And I mean, even currently, right? Like having an understanding of maybe a competitive analysis and, you know, where else are they shopping and things like that, I think could be really beneficial. So, I mean, we've seen them do just recently another one that they did in the US. They allowed people to send customers that use the app to send, you know, thank you messages for the frontline workers and employees who have, you know, been out even during the epidemic. And so I think that they're always just doing all kinds of fun stuff. I like that they do use geolocation a lot within a lot of their campaigns, and they do it in a way that I think is really beneficial for them because one, obviously it's privacy focused, but it's also helping them generate and create more of their own first party data and getting a better understanding of their consumers. So yeah, another win for Burger King.
Yeah, they're constantly at it. You know, like you said, I love that they're big proponents and users of geolocation data. You know, from the traffic jam Whopper, which is my favorite, still my favorite campaign in Mexico City. You know, delivering Whoppers to, you know, via motorcycle in the middle of traffic jams. You know, geofencing around that. So I love that campaign. To this, which is, you know, Brazil is number two right now in the world in cases and you know, growth of cases of the virus. So getting people to stay home, you know, I don't know who's worse, the Madero or Trump, but like they're both like, I don't know if they're from the same playbook or something. Like they just don't seem to you know, think that anything needs to get done and to help slow this down. So anyhow, at least Burger King is trying, and I really applaud their efforts here to encourage people to stay home and reward them for doing so. So I think it's brilliant. I think the data that they get, as you described, is huge as well. I think any consumer facing brand like this, you know, you know, half your business is about what you know about customers and the data that you have on them and how you can find, you know, more people that behave the same, lookalikes, and so on. So I think building that profile and having that data is massive. So obviously, you need to constantly walk that line too with privacy and whatnot. But I think these guys do a really great job of sort of managing that utility, that exchange of value. In this case, you know, free food, you know, for keeping people safe, and at the same time getting some data and getting their brand across. So great combination. All right, final story for this week. Facebook has made an acquisition in the location space, a company called Mapillary. And this one, I didn't see any numbers. I don't know if you caught any numbers this week on the size of this deal, but they bought this company. And yeah, it's they said like the Mapillary users, their data will remain for them to upload their images and use the map data as it was. So there's nothing that they need to kind of worry about there. You know, their service is all about visual mapping data and imagery around places, and that's something that obviously, you know, we've not seen in Facebook itself. So I think this is, you know, could be quite complementary. Mapillary has also been based for a long time on OpenStreetMap. They say that their commitment to that remains, and to the free wiki world map will continue with their editors that have been working on that project. So they're not sort of, you know, disbanding that aspect of it. And I think for companies that sort of come out of that breed of, you know, sort of open data, you know, open maps, you know, contributing to, you know, the sort of the global data set, if you will. Um, there are many companies that are always big fans of that, right? And many individuals that are big fans of that. And I think when you become part of a corporate machine like Facebook, that can always, create a lot of concern. I remember going way back to an acquisition that they made about a year. I'm going to say a year after we started the LBMA, so around 2011, maybe early 2012. Um, Facebook acquired a company called Gowalla, and Gowalla was the major competitor at the time to Foursquare, check-ins and so on and so forth. And Gowalla was much more on sort of they had I'll say a much more just really a fan base is the best way I can describe it. Just people who are enthusiastic about the platform, love sharing the platform, love talking about the platform, and really engaged with it. And then when Facebook acquired them, there was sort of this sort of everybody kind of throwing their arms up, saying, what are you doing? We don't want Facebook to have our data. We were happy for you to have our data, but we don't want Facebook to have our data. And so that's something that I think Facebook has had to learn over the years as they've done acquisitions, in terms of how to maintain that sort of separation, how to kind of keep people comfortable about where their data is going to go. And especially right now, given the environment that Facebook is in and kind of where their politics stands at the moment, with their leadership and, some of the employees, walking away. And I think there's a lot of things to be concerned about, and yet at the same time they're trying to move forward as a company, obviously with acquisitions like this, to kind of really ramp up their stable of technology and services in terms of what they can do. So we'll see. I think probably again, I don't know any numbers on the deal. I haven't seen anything published or posted, but I think from a Mapillary perspective, probably gives them a nice home, a nice place to kind of settle into in terms of just more people, more resources, more cash to go do whatever it is that they want to do in terms of grow and expand, with some anonymity and some ability to kind of keep doing some of the noble work that they were doing, and at the same time giving Facebook some technology chops in a part of the geo space that they haven't had up until now. I know I was reading they also recently bought a company called Scape Technologies out of London, that is heavy into sort of GPS technologies, computer vision, using cameras to understand the surroundings of places as well. So it seems like they're moving heavy into sort of the image-based aspects of map data, with both of these acquisitions. So we'll see. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, so I was trying to remember. I know that I had met the COO from Mapillary, and I can't remember exactly where I met her, Janine Jung, but I think this is interesting, and I think that there's like you mentioned, right? I think there's some level of concern with these types of acquisitions, especially with Facebook in the current climate. And then there's some levels of, there's potential use cases where it could be really beneficial. So I would say like things to be concerned about are when we have seen a lot of the headlines recently with maybe Facebook and their determination on how they will allow certain advertising and the ability to push out news that we know is not necessarily based on facts. And I think like within the political spectrum, specifically here in the States, there's a lot of questions that something like this makes concerning, right? Like, were there protesters in this area? And if it's geotagged, being able to find and identify people maybe when that's not necessarily what they wanted. So I think there's some concerns like when you think about everything that's going on currently.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's a lot of opportunities as well. So when you think about things like human trafficking and child sex trafficking and things of that nature, having the ability to, we know that platforms like Facebook are leveraged and for a lot of these things that are going on. And so you look at, organizations, nonprofits like Thorn that are leveraging a ton of different technologies in order to help find people who have been taken, and something like this could be something that is helpful and could be leveraged for the good within the platform, right? Maybe identifying those rings and being able to help, bring them to justice. So I think that it could be used for good or bad. I mean, it's just like any other data, right? Anything that you have, you can choose as a business or as an individual to use that for good or evil. And so I guess only time will tell how this is going to move forward, but it's definitely interesting and worth paying attention to.
100%. So, all right. Well, that's our show for this week. 4 news stories in there, kind of ranging all over the planet a little bit, but some interesting stuff, and I think some stuff that really speaks to kind of the need. I think a couple of themes that we keep seeing reinforced there. We talked over the last couple of weeks about image-based search and kind of the power of where that's going. I think you could argue that some of what we're seeing here in this last story really kind of draws on that. If they're sort of tying imagery, visual to maps, and kind of correlating that data together, and from a search perspective, could be quite interesting. We've talked a lot about sort of the traffic to retail, bricks and mortar versus e-commerce, and kind of what COVID's doing around that, and some of the technologies that are kind of facilitating the new way that we work. We talked about interesting things there with Burger King in terms of, and we talked about data. So I think there's a bunch of great things in there, and I think I continue to be amazed every week with the innovations and the stories that we see. So anyhow, for our listeners and viewers, you've been watching or listening to episode number 470 of Location Weekly. We thank you for tuning in every week. Our contact information is at the end of the show here for the video viewers anyways. But we're easily found on all the major social channels. So please, give us some feedback, follow. If you have story ideas, reach out. We're easily found on LinkedIn and all those kinds of things. So yeah, thank you everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you, Robert Dolan, for the Burger King story. Forgot to give a shout out for that.
Yes.
He sent that over.
100%. So thank you everybody, and we'll see you next week for 471. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.